A very good morning to you and welcome to Signature Morning here on Signature Television. My name is Godwin Sunday. Well, Nigeria is Africa's most populous country, home to not only a wealth of oil and natural gas resources, but also Africa's largest mangrove forest, of which only 6% is protected. According to the United Nations, the country has the highest rate of deforestation in the world, losing approximately 3.7% of its forest every year. Alongside land use change and energy production, deforestation is one of the primary sources of Nigerians' greenhouse gas emission. Today, Nigerian multiple ecological zones support a wide range of livelihoods, agricultural practices, and commodities, all affected by climate change. Rising sea levels threaten southern and coastal cities such as Lagos, while periods of extreme rainfall in coastal cities and in northern part of Nigeria within the Sahel region increase vulnerability to flooding, exacerbating the spread of waterborne infections diseases and contributes to erosion and infrastructural damage. At the same time, drought, reduced rainfall in certain areas of the country, and rising air temperatures jeopardize Nigerians' water security and hydropower systems and hinder agricultural production and fishing, which in turn reduces food security and negatively impacts health and nutrition across the country. This morning, we'll be talking about the climate change as it affects Nigerian in general and looking at it again from what we have experienced and some of the meteorological agencies' predictions on Nigeria. And joining me in this conversation is Simon Ibrahim Achi, who is a development and research monitoring and evaluation specialist with over 7 years of experience in climate resilience and sustainability agriculture. He holds a master degree in developmental economics in focus of agriculture from the Ahmadu Bello University. You're welcome to Signature Morning.
It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, Mr. Simon, you've heard from the opening that Nigerians currently have experienced different phase of climate change. But bring us up to speed. Give us an overview. What is climate change?
Okay, so thank you for having me once again. Climate change generally has to do with various degree changes in the nature at which climate has come to be. Prior to this particular year, we have experienced different activities that are quite unusual because of the nature of climate change. So climate change has to do with the degree of changes that occur that tends to affect the rainfall pattern, that affect the temperature of the air, that affect the level of the sea, as well as other unusual activities that do come up. So climate change has to do with the way weather has been affected so much in diverse ways. That is just a simple way I can say about climate change, though there are some other factors that we can be able to
All right,
talk
so let's
about.
even begin with the factor. We've seen extreme cases even this year, but what are the factors that contributes to this, the frequency and intensity of climate change?
So, okay, so climate change in the past 1, 2 decades was not so pronounced as it is presently. Okay, so the combination of long-term global warming trends as well as the return of the El Nino climate pattern has exacerbated what we are experiencing and what we are even discussing. The global weather warming trend has really been a factor as well as the El Nino climate pattern. So the El Nino climate pattern do occur between 2 to 7 years, and it occurs within the region of the tropical part of the Pacific Ocean. That is the central as well as the eastern tropical part of the Pacific Ocean. And as we all know, Pacific Ocean is the biggest ocean in the world. So it affects a lot of countries around that region. So what really happened is that whenever it occurs, the Pacific Ocean will release warm air that it has been accumulating over time into the atmosphere. And as it released the warm air into the atmosphere, it kind of caused changes in the global temperature. So last year was regarded as the hottest year, that's 2023, was regarded as the hottest year because the average global temperature was 1.5 degrees Celsius. The last time that happened was in 2016, which was 1.2 degrees Celsius. That's 2016. So it was because of the El Nino return that propelled to the year to be termed as the hottest year, and we can be able to have a lot of evidence as a result of that occurrence. So the global surface temperature has changed. Most of the marine habitat or marine animals cannot be able to enjoy what they usually do, so they drift away from those regions to another different region, and also the return of series of hurricanes and all that around the Tahiti region, the Hawaii region, as well as some of the islands, the Galapagos Island to be precise. So they experience a lot of climate change activities in those regions, as well as serious drought that also affected Africa and also even affected Nigeria. For example, this year we can be able to attest to the fact that there was a seizure in rain pattern around July and August, which really affected a lot of crop production in Nigeria. So there are a lot of factors that affect that, but majorly is the combination of the global warming trend as well as the return of the El Nino climate pattern.
Thank you so much for that feedback. I am curious at this point, looking at the new normal that we have right now. Most times the Nigerian Meteorological Agency gives some predictions that we're going to have heavy rainfall in the course of the year, and they even tell you it's going to rain for 5 days, and we don't get to see all of those happen. Their prediction sometimes doesn't come to limelight. Is this due to technological deficiencies?
Yes, I would say it's due to technological deficiency, but not always. The prediction about climate change can occur, and a change in a particular direction can happen within an hour. So when that happens, you don't always expect frequent. When that happens, it takes some time for technology to quickly send a signal, and also the agency to also give a report quickly, and the target population also enjoys the report. So it can happen as a result of technological deficiency, but again, it also happens as a result of the swiftness to reporting. So these are some of the two aspects I can mention: technology, yes, as well as the reporting process also. Because when you have a sophisticated technology, for example, there is a sophisticated technology that can be able to give an accurate climate condition within the next 10 days, particularly in areas around Canada, Iceland to be precise, and other countries around the world. But some of those technology are not so available here, simply because of resources, one, and then you also need manpower to also know how to navigate and also understand this technology. If you're to acquire this technology, you definitely have to train your people within the country to understand how to interpret and as well as to report timely. So two factors: inadequate resources to get the updated technology, as well as the variation in the reporting system. Yes.
Farmers this year find it very difficult to even predict the outcome of the rains.
Yes.
Unlike last year, a lot of farmers this year complained of flooding in many quarters across the country.
Yes.
I want to ask, can this be tied to any form of ozone layer depletions and the electromagnetic spectrum, the effects on the ozone. Let's look at it from this because it's spiritual routine.
Okay, so
Maybe the gods have decided to smile on the farmers and we didn't see much of rain.
well, not I will not talk about the spiritual aspect. I think based on my knowledge of agriculture, which I've been practicing for over 10 years, uh, farmers have this understanding that when there is seizure in rain in some part of the country, they term it to be spiritual, but it's not actually spiritual. So that also brings us back to the discussion again on climate change. Um, some of the variations in rainfall is majorly caused by climate change. And this climate change, man also contributes a lot. Like you have mentioned, innate gases are always being emitted into the atmosphere. As the population of the world, as well as Nigeria population keeps increasing, definitely you experience more increased activities in industry. Urbanization is expanding. Uh, a lot of activities that can propel the emissions of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, some innate gases into the atmosphere. So when those gases are being released into the atmosphere, they go up to kind of block the ozone layer. So the sun ray cannot be able to pass and penetrate as it usually do. There will be some kind of changes because of the blockage of these gases on the surface of the ozone layer. So that leads to some of the differences you will experience in the climate or particularly the weather of a particular region. The heat waves that do come up is as a result of this. The irregular rainfall that affects agricultural people within the country, particularly farmers, also is as a result of this. And other aspects, you also have some irregular cold weather in some places that before they don't used to experience some of those weather. So different variations, changes, drastic changes in the weather pattern of so many regions in Nigeria is as a result of climate change. So it's not spiritual. This is not spiritual. It is majorly caused by the activity of mankind, and that is why the promotion of recent trends in technology, where we have efficient use of energy, is encouraged. Renewable energy is being promoted, and it has even been captured within the SDG 17. So you have renewable energy, and a lot of countries, a lot of organizations are promoting that to see that this particular, I would say, disadvantage occurrence do not repeat itself over and over again. So it's not about spiritual.
Okay, so maybe we should paraphrase the word from being spiritual. Then we should ask it directly or another way. Can we say at this point that the climate change is being selective? Because we see some part of Nigeria enjoy rainfalls, some enjoy abundance of rainfall, which has immediately led to flooding, and some have experienced some sort of droughts in the country. Should we now say that the climate has decided to select who to favor?
Yes, so every region has its unique encounter of climate change. In Nigeria, areas that experience flooding, you find out that in other locations they are experiencing heat waves, high degree of temperature in those regions. Areas that experience very low degrees Celsius, that's cooled temperature. Other areas experience drought. In the northern part of Nigeria, you experience a lot of drought, being that it is island, and also in the southern part of Nigeria, some of the fringes, Lagos, Bayelsa, are experiencing high rising sea level. So every region has its own encounter of climate change, and every region needs to also have preparedness and also know the regular occurrence of the climate change that is not favorable to that region and how they can be able to tackle it. You can't be able to treat the way you handle climate change in the northern part of Nigeria, around Katsina region, around Kebbi, Sokoto, Jigawa, those regions, and then you kind of apply that to the southern parts. So the way you tackle this is based on how frequent these irregularities in weather occur. So if it is flooding that occurs regularly, how can we be able to kind of tackle this? If it is drought, how can we be able to tackle it? If it is heavy rainfall, how can we be able to? If it is high rising level, sea level, how can we be able to? So every region has its own peculiar. So it is not that climate change favors this region. Every region has its own challenge that climate change imposes to it.
So invariably, it's not spiritual.
It is not.
And the climate does not choose who to favor.
Not at all.
All right, so let's talk about deforestation. Can this also be one of the reasons why we've experienced abnormalities in the weather so far?
Yes. When like we talked about from the beginning of this discussion, so areas that are around the fringes has their own peculiarity. So when you have areas that deforestation is frequent, you are gradually giving more opportunity for negative climate occurrences. So we are very aware that trees emit a lot of oxygen, and we breathe in oxygen. So they also consume carbon dioxide as well. So when you have deforestation occurring, you are indirectly giving that room for carbon dioxide not to be consumed. So right, so you have let's take for example areas around the coastal parts where you have mangroves area, mangroves plants and all that. Let's say those plants or those vegetations are being removed, and you have a lot of activities that has to do with emission of carbon dioxide and as well as other activities of mankind, bush burning, all taking place. So how can this carbon dioxide as well as the inert gases we mentioned, the methane, the nitrous oxide, how can they be able to be absorbed? So you are indirectly exposing that environment to a negative effect of climate change. When that happens, it is encouraged that anytime a tree is being cut down, 3 or 4 of those trees should be replaced. That is the principal practice. For every tree that is being cut down, you can't stop cutting off trees. Our furnitures are made from trees. So if we say we should stop cutting trees, where can we be able to get this wood? Where can we be able to get papers that we make use of, and other materials that are obtained from trees? But whenever a tree is cut down, you need to replace this particular tree with 2 or 3 or 4 of the trees that to just replace those trees. Very important.
Thank you so much for that. Simon.
Yes.
Harmattan is on us.
Yes.
In the north.
Yes.
In Abuja, to be precise. We have Harmattan, and I want to ask, last year by this time we didn't experience Harmattan.
Yes.
It was almost like a rainy season, November last year.
Yes.
And this year we're experiencing Harmattan by this time. And it comes with one strange sound early in the morning. One whoa sound, I don't know. But can we say that it has come too early and it's an abnormality at this point in time?
So irregularities in the timing at which we experience some seasons is as a result of global change in the climate pattern. So Harmattan comes earlier than last year. Yes, very true. it is as a result of climate change. So you realize that the northern wind tends to have more room for it to blow and penetrate more because, like we mentioned, deforestation as well as drought. Drought has made some of the plants to dry up and to die. So it has more vacuum for it to penetrate internally into the country. Before now, Harmattan usually comes around December in Abuja, but we are experiencing it in November already. So these are as a result of the activities that climate change has caused, as well as mankind as well. So you have bush burning is caused by mankind. Drought is caused by climate change, where the plants dried off and they withered off. So giving room for this north east wind to penetrate internally up to the region of Abuja. So it is a result of mankind activities as well as climate change.
So at what point can we say the weather is, we are experiencing abnormalities in the weather? At what point?
At any time, abnormality in weather condition can occur. At any time. Rainy season in Abuja usually is around March, April, particularly from April. But this year you find out that rainy season delay a bit in some part of Abuja, and then there was a serious seizure of rainfall in between July and August in Abuja, as well as some other states in Nigeria. So at any time, these changes can come and we need to prepare. That is why the preparedness is very, very key, very important, and this preparedness goes across the interventions of government, private individuals, as well as some other non-governmental organizations.
Simon,
yes,
the conversations around climate change seems to be a tertiary conversation, a conversation that happens just in university setup. Primary and secondary school children are not given enough information on what the climate change is all about and some of the occurrences and some of the impacts of climate change. At this point in time, what would be your recommendations to our curriculum in terms of what we teach and the kind of orientation we give to our children out there?
So, very, very important question. In some part of the world, climate change has been incorporated in the curriculum of their education. That's their education curriculum. But in Nigeria, you find out that some of these discussions are not modernized. They are discussions about, you have a blast of, mountain magma coming out of the rock from the geographical parts, and then in agriculture you have droughts. Some few discussions, the in-depth discussion and also the education aspect needs to also trickle down to primary school. Okay, so children need to also understand that rainy season has its own time, and also Harmattan has its own time, and they also need to understand that variations in these occurrences is as a result of climate change. So when they are expecting rainy season, a child of primary 6 or a child of primary 6 or primary 5, she should be able to understand that rainfall in his own region should fall within a particular month. So when he sees that occurrence is not happening, then he can be able to understand that there is an impact which is caused by climate change. So this has to capture both primary as well as secondary, and then the students need to also have understanding of what they need to contribute, right? They need to understand that, okay, they don't need to uproot trees that are growing they don't need to also set out fire, you know, on maybe a forest and all that. They need to be sensitized on the activities that they can contribute positively to see that they make the environment cleaner and safer for everyone. They also need to be educated on the activities that they can hinder from, or they can stop practicing if they have been doing, like as in setting out bush as in without the notice of people and all that. So they need to be sensitized both in the aspect of the curriculum as well as in aspect of practical.
For the last couple of years,
Yes.
world leaders have been gathering to discuss how to have a better climatic situation and how to best regulate some of the impact of the climate change across the world. I think the last one was held in Dubai.
Yes, that was.
In Dubai,
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, I beg your pardon. And some of the our Nigerian leaders, they've always been a part of this climate change meetings and functions and gatherings. But coming back home, implementation has always been a challenge. Why is this so?
Okay, so I would say we are aware of what is affecting us, and we also have representatives of Nigeria that were present in Saudi Arabia. That was this year. That was last week, to be precise. So implementation is very key, and when we're talking about implementation, it's not something that we can do verbally. It has to do with action, which has to encompass the technological equipment, acquiring of high technological equipment, the political will is there, as well as the social activity is also there. So when we have knowledge of the consequences of our activities, how it affects the climate and how it causes negative impact to the weather conditions in our country, we need to invest in the technology. Countries like Iceland has a gadget that when carbon dioxide is being emitted, they call it direct air capturing. When carbon dioxide is emitted into the atmosphere, there is another equipment that quickly neutralizes the carbon dioxide. Countries like Canada has post-combustion capturing, which is another equipment that has to do with the burning of coal. So, and we know methane always comes from, you know, the burning of coal and also the refining of oil. So when those gases are released into the atmosphere, there is a post-combustion capturing equipment that captures it and neutralizes it. So these are not equipment that are easy to acquire. They need a lot of resources. So government needs to give more priority to allocating resources to the tackling of these gases, and also the private individual also can play a key role. Financial institutions can guide investors. Okay, if you're to get a loan from my institution and you are to involve yourself in activities that will cause a lot of emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, you will be advised, okay, why can't you get this equipment? It emits lesser or if not zero carbon dioxide, and it is energy efficient. Why can't you practice this so that you will not cause more harm to the environment? So financial institutions, that's the private parts, can also play a key role, and NGOs can also support that through advocacies and also implementation, like tree planting. I can remember in Sokoto there was a particular period of time that the governor gave an order for number of trees. I can't remember, but I think about thousands of trees to be planted, and it was done. So the political will is there that will make our environment cleaner and safer as well. So implementation is very key, and this implementation has to do with investment in resources, the political will, and also the social aspect.
Thank you so much for that. And just in case you are just joining us, this is still Signature Morning. And in order for us to celebrate the Global Sustainable Development Week, we are talking about the new normal in even in climate change across the world, and we started taking it from Nigeria. My guest is Simon Ibrahim, and we are talking about Abraham. I beg your pardon. We are talking about some of the climate change issue. But let me return back to you, Simon.
Yes.
To a very large extent, we say that money have been earmarked.
Yes.
Money has been kept
Yes.
for us to go for trainings of this magnitude, just like the last one that happened last week.
Yes.
Money has been kept. And when we return back with the agreements
Yes.
that was reached and the communiques that were reached on this, implementation now becomes a challenge. But even when money have been given out for implementations, we see last minute response, like just a case of flooding we saw even in Bayelsa and other part of the country. We've seen last minute reactions, no proactiveness in terms of this. Nigerians are curious. Can we say that this is an act of wickedness on the part of the parties that attend meetings and not coming back with the direct implementation plan, or the part of the government that gets the blueprint and not implement what they sent representatives to go and get reports for them? Where can Nigerians place their narrative at this point?
Very important question. So I would say every Nigerian has this push to do attitude. As in, when you have an activity to do, you need to be pushed for you to implement. So I will say this this gap, I will term it as gap, is as a result of the inadequate follow-up from the government side. So as a government, you allocate the resources, you have the blueprint of what needs to be done, and then you release these resources and you don't do follow-up. As an MIE, I as well as a researcher, I also have this understanding that every framework must have someone to monitor it. So when you have a blueprint and you don't have anyone to monitor, to check if these activities that have been outlined in the blueprint are not implemented, what will be the negative effect it will bring to Nigerians? So you don't have monitors, you don't follow up, and when you don't have that, definitely you have lapses. So like I said, Nigerians, most of our implementation process needs to be pushed for us to do what we need to do. It is my duty for me to go to supervise a particular region, to take records and all that, so that I can inform the authorities about the record or about the nature of climate in that region. And I refuse to do that. And when the authorities don't have updates on what is happening in a particular region, they can't be able to do proper forecast and other things that they're supposed to do. So every person has a very, very important role to play. The government has their own part. I will say the government because the government, they have the political will. They also have a say to the resources. So when they have these resources and they release these resources, they need to have people that will make sure that what they have released these resources for are being implemented properly. So not to implement an activity superficial just for implementing sake, but to make sure that these activities are implemented to the latter, making sure that what it is meant for, it has been met. So I will say the government more, though we as individuals also have our own parts to also play. When we know that negative activities can cause harmful effects to the environment, I need not to do that. We need not to do that. So sensitization as well is very key.
Simon, let's talk about issue of climate change that affects both of us.
Yes.
And this is in the area of food production. But even in food production, let's start with fruits.
Okay.
You know, some fruits are seasonal fruits.
Yes.
And we are having some form of abnormalities in terms of the climate changes so far.
Yes.
When we're supposed to have, let's use mango as a case study. A mango is supposed to follow through a seasonal process, and we have an anomaly in this process. And the mango that is supposed to be ready for consumption by, say, July, the mango is now ready for consumption by February next year. Can we say at this point that such fruits are still edible for consumption, even though they have been affected by the various climate change?
Yes. So the period at which every fruit produce can be altered by climate change occurrence. So we're talking about, for example, mango. You find out that sometimes a fruit that's supposed to produce around a particular month is now producing earlier than the time that it's supposed to produce. So it is safer for consumption in as far as it completes the cycle of its production. It is safer, and we won't say because mango is ready in February or March, rain has not, there is this notion rain has not hit or rain has not beaten the mango, so it shouldn't be consumed.
That's what I was even coming. That's what I was going to.
Okay, so and you kind of leave it to deteriorate like that. No, in as far as it completes its production cycle and it is ripe enough, it is safe to be consumed. So there are a lot of fruits that have been altered as a result of the changes in climate change. We have cashew, we have sugar cane, because you know some of the areas that experience serious flooding, the area tend to be having a lot of moisture, so farmers have the avenue to quickly plant sugarcane, and then the cultivation is a bit faster. So you will not say because it's you get it in this particular month, so you will not consume. In as far as the production cycle is adequately completed, it is safer for consumption.
And those are for the surface crop. Let's look at bryophytes and a bit of pteridophytes. In that case, we have bryophytes and pteridophytes, and can one say that things like yam that grow on the soil, and things like coconut, such fruits of that nature, and consumables and food, can we say that looking at the flood that we've had so far, especially in the last couple of months, some yams were almost not yams again. They've started metamorphosing into something else, but people still tag them to be yam. The last yam, I'll give you a typical example. The last New Yam festivals in August for both states that celebrated their New Yam festivals. Some of the yams were, I don't want to use the word not yamming, but it wasn't looking like yam. In such a situation, should we say that those are still edible?
Yes. So consumption is a very key aspect that every individual needs to know. When you have a crop, particularly yam, you may mention, when you have, for example, yam, that the physical nature is not looking like yam, but when you have the internal part of the crop the way it is, and it is still like the yam, it is safe for consumption. But when you have yam that the physical nature has been altered and the internal nature also altered, it is not comfortable or convenient for someone to consume. So it is advised that when you have any crop altered physically and the internal is still okay, you can consume. I would not like to talk about most of the nature of consume or not consume, since I'm not deeply into the bio aspects as in like a biochemistry experts, but the understanding that one will have is that when you have the physical aspect, for example, coconut may not look there is this covering before the husk and other aspects. So when you have some of those external aspects altered, but the coconut fruit itself still tests the way it's supposed to test, it is safe for consumption.
All right, so let's, before as we begin to pack our things to start to leave the studio, let's bring these conversations again and bring it back to the nuts.
Yes.
In terms of what we produce here in the nuts. Yes. Of course, we have a very fertile soils here in the nuts, but the climate change also have become a very interesting factor that has been able to help a lot of farmers not to even understand the season. But then you are an agricultural expert, and also you're a researcher and also a climate change specialist. But looking at all of this at this point in time, what should we be telling our farmers in the far north at this point in time?
Okay, so it is very important for government as well as private agencies to intensify in their early warning response reporting. So if you can remember, at the beginning of the year, there was a report by NIMET stating how the rainfall will look like in Nigeria. And also, as time goes on, they keep updating stakeholders like farmers. They are majorly stakeholders. So there was a conference I was opportune to attend organized by an organization here in Abuja. They invited personnel from NIMET and some other stakeholders, particularly agricultural cooperative leaders. So sensitization needs to be intensified to make sure that farmers have knowledge of how and when they need to cultivate their crop. Agricultural wise, there is what we call climate smart agriculture. Farmers need to also have understanding of the variety they need to also cultivate for them to get their produce harvested on time. So there are a lot of requirements that needs to be done in terms of reporting to farmers, in terms of advising farmers on varieties of crop they need to also adopt, and also how they can be able to relate to the authorities to get this information on time.
So if you're a farmer out there, you need to know how to relate. What about those of us that are not farmers, but we are also beneficiaries of the various climate changes right now? You come to the office without an umbrella, and you wish that you've left the house with an umbrella. At this point in time, what should private individuals also be looking at this point?
Yes, so private individuals as well as media houses, like what we are doing presently, are given that task to sensitize people, to bring in experts to talk about this issue, right? And also needs to also invest in renewable energy. Our ACs that consume a lot of energy, and energy is always obtained from natural resources, majorly the hydro, that's water in Nigeria, though there are other forms of energy. So we need to have this understanding that our activity has a major consequences in the atmosphere as well as the climate change.
Mr. Simon, I was hoping I would hear you say that I should drop one umbrella in the office, then one from the house. So if I miss the rain in the office, I won't miss the
You
one.
can as well do that.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for finding out time to be with us today, Mr. Simon.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
All right. Well, viewers, this is how far we can run this morning on Signature Morning. Do remember that you can follow us on all our social media handle, and that's currently displayed on the screen. You can join us and let us know your thoughts. You can join in the conversation to at least profile some knowledgeable solutions to add value to the climate change and the new normal that we are currently experiencing across Nigeria, Africa, and by extension, the world. It is the World Global Sustainability Development Week, and we'll be talking about more on sustainability development and some of the angles that borders on humanity and how to help you make informed decisions on a daily basis. Till I come away again, I am Godwin Sunday. Do enjoy the rest of your day.